All right, welcome everyone to today's Behavioral Health webinar. I'm Kate Trams, and this is the American Indian and Alaska Native Behavioral Health webinar series. Today we have Dara Jefferson speaking on domestic violence in Indian country. This training series is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, or ATTC. We are one of 4 national focus centers serving the ATTC network, shown in this slide. The network also includes 10 regional centers and a network coordinating office. To learn more, please visit our website. Our center is a NADAC certified educational provider, and we'd be happy to provide you with CEHs for a $15 fee. The CEH request form is available for download in the Files pod in the webinar screen, and I will also be sending this form in a follow-up email to all who attended. Immediately following today's webinar, you will be redirected to our GPR evaluation. GPR stands for the Government Performance and Results Act, and SAMHSA asks us to evaluate our events in order to comply with this act and provide improved performance assessment and accountability. This survey asks about your satisfaction with the event and will take less than 10 minutes to complete. We thank you in advance for helping us to improve our program. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few instructions for the Adobe Connect system. To view the presentation in full screen mode, click on the full screen button at the top right corner of the presentation pod, which looks like 4 arrows pointing outward. To return to the regular view, click the button again. You will be muted for the duration of this webinar, so please use the Q&A pod to share your questions and comments, and we will address questions at appropriate points during the presentation. For today's session, we plan to have a question and answer at the end of the presentation, so feel free to submit your questions throughout, but we won't be addressing questions until the end. We would also like you to be aware that this webinar records participant attention time. If you minimize the webinar or are working in another window, the system will record your participation as inactive, which may be reflected in the number of CEHs received. Today's speaker is Dara Jefferson. Dara has been a victim advocate for 4 years and serves at Meskwaki Victim Services. She is certified through the Iowa Coalition Against Sexual Assault and Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and is the only Native American advocate in the state of Iowa. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from California State University, Chico, and has also worked as a California Tribal TANS Partnership caseworker. Dara, thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. And I'm going to pull up your presentation and pass things over to you at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dara Jefferson, and I'm a victim advocate with Meskwaki Victim Services. We are located in Tama, Iowa, and we are a statewide domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy program. We offer comprehensive services to Native men, women, children, and their families. I am originally from ECT, Wyoming, located on the Wind River Indian Reservation, and I am a member of the Northern Arapaho tribe. Today I'm going to discuss domestic violence in Indian country and how we can better provide services to our Indian communities. So just a quick overview about the things I will be talking about today. The current Native population in the U.S., just to familiarize yourself with who we're working with and where they're all located at. Current statistics for violence in Indian country, risk factors, historical trauma, challenges and barriers to reporting unique to Indian country, protective factors, and providing culturally specific services to Native Americans and Alaska Natives. So there are 567 federally recognized Indian nations in the United States. We have to keep in mind that there are also hundreds of tribes that remain unrecognized by the federal government throughout the United States. Approximately 229 of these federally recognized Indian nations are located in Alaska, and others are located in 33 states. The total American Indian and Alaska Native population in the United States today is 5.4 million, makes up about roughly 2% of the total U.S. population. If you can see on this map right here are the purple areas. Those are the land areas in the United States. There are 326 of those. Tribes are all ethnically, linguistically, and culturally diverse. And this is important to remember when we have Native clients, because not all of our clients will be from that tribe that we work with, for, or near. So we should always remain open to learn from them as well as being able to provide our services. More than 4 in 5 American Indian and Alaska Native women and men have experienced violence in their lifetime. That comes to 84.3% of Native women and 81.6% of Native men who experience violence in the forms of sexual violence, physical violence by an intimate partner, stalking, and psychological aggression by an intimate partner. This data comes from the 2010 findings from the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey conducted by the National Institute of Justice, and it was published in May of this year. So when we look at domestic violence specifically in Indian country, we see that 55.5% of American Indian and Alaska Native women and 43.2% of American Indian and Alaska Native men have experienced physical violence in their lifetime. So in this survey, physical violence is described as being slapped, pushed, or shoved, hit with a fist or something hard, being kicked, being hurt by having your hair pulled, being slammed against something, being hurt by being choked or suffocated, being beaten, being burned on purpose, or having a knife or gun used on you. Psychological aggression was also measured on the survey, with data showing that 66.4% of American Indian and Alaska Native women and 73% of American Indian and Alaska Native men have experienced psychological aggression in their lifetime. Psychological aggression is defined in this survey as expressive aggression, such as yelling, calling names, insulting, humiliating, or making fun of the victim. Coercive control, such as trying to keep the victim away from family and friends. Making decisions on his or her behalf. Demanding to know where he or she was. Making threats to harm either the victim or him or herself in an attempt to control the victim. Threatening to harm or take away a pet, child, or someone the victim loves. Keeping the victim from leaving the house. Keeping the victim from having money for his or her own use, and destroying important items. Another form of psychological aggression is control of reproductive or sexual health, such as stopping the victim from using birth control, refusing to use protection, and using pregnancy as a form of control by either trying to get pregnant for female perpetrators or for male perpetrators trying to get the victim pregnant when he or she may not want to. So I've included right in the middle there an image of the power and control wheel that shows the most common forms of abuse used by perpetrators. It's always a pretty handy item to keep on file or on display. In a lot of abuse cases that we see, if the abuse isn't physical, a lot of people don't really equate it to domestic violence. So it's always good to have around to use as an educational tool, either when you're on a one-on-one setting or a group setting. So that way people are more aware of what abuse looks like in the different forms. So risk factors. When we talk about risk factors, we must keep in mind that persons with certain risk factors are more likely to become perpetrators or victims of interpersonal violence. These risk factors contribute but might not be direct causes. Not everyone who is considered at risk becomes involved in violence. So really we can't just throw a whole blanket over a whole population or community just because these risk factors exist within it. But we can use our knowledge of these factors to sort through our clients and use them as focus points for services. So poverty. Poverty creates a lot of stress. We all know that. Both on the providers and persons who are being provided for. And when there's stress, if someone has not learned healthy coping skills or has not been prepared for how to effectively deal with stress, this can lead to violence. Unemployment is a huge indicator that this may be a factor. Economic stress is similar to poverty, but with its own uniqueness. So it could be a person with employment, but they still might not be meeting all the needs at home. That can cause stress. They have stress. They have the stress of working, as well as the stress of not being able to provide for their family's needs. There's bills and groceries and gas and car maintenance that people are having to worry about, and then they have to go to work, so it's just more stress on top of more stress. And then you add in substance abuse, and we have compounded issues. Our clients are sometimes completely dependent on substances as a coping mechanism. It is their release from their lives, but also causes a plethora of other problems. I worked with a client once who when she got in trouble, the court sentenced her to go to treatment. And when I was talking to her, she goes, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do I do with myself now that I can't drink? And that was just it was a little shocking to me at the moment, but we kind of worked through ways on, I brought up like maybe journaling or sewing or going to different classes. So I had to work with her about how to keep herself busy so she wouldn't fall into, that pattern of substance abuse again. So we really had to think about that. The state of their mental health, so like depression, PTSD, untreated mental illnesses, all of these can create unique environments that promote violence. I've worked with families here that have a family member that has untreated mental illness, and they just kind of become used to it. They're used to their cycles of violence, and they just kind of deal with it as it comes. So this person, they'll become violent with other household members. They harm others and themselves. We see them repeatedly go to jail or in the court system, and nobody really knows what to do with them. And they're just kind of stuck in the cycle. So we have to kind of look for that too, and be able to point them in the right direction on how to get help. Witnessing DV as a child or a history of violence in the family. Most experts believe that children who are raised in abusive homes learn that violence is an effective way to resolve conflicts and problems. They may replicate the violence they witness as children in their teen and adult relationships and parenting experiences. Boys who witness their mother's abuse are more likely to batter their female partners as adults than boys raised in nonviolent homes. For girls, adolescence may result in a belief that threats and violence are the norm in relationships. We're also starting to hear the term historical trauma a lot these days, and I'm kind of finding more and more research online and working with other people that are being published that show how it manifests itself in today's Native communities. So what exactly is historical trauma? Michelle Sotero, an instructor at the University of Nevada, offers a threefold definition. In the initial phase, the dominant culture perpetrates mass trauma on a population in the form of colonialism, slavery, war, or genocide. In the second phase, the affected population shows physical and psychological symptoms in response to trauma. And in the final phase, the initial population passes these responses to trauma in subsequent generations, who in turn display similar symptoms. So that's kind of what we're working with right now, today. Like those generations have passed on those responses to trauma to the generation that we're working with right now. And we have to keep that in mind. It also manifests itself in our communities they show themselves in our high rates of suicide, homicide, domestic violence, child abuse, alcoholism, and other social problems. These stem from being exposed to generations of violent colonization, assimilation policies, and general loss. For the last 500 years, individuals from the dominant European cultures have engaged in behaviors that have resulted in a very deliberate, purposeful, and systematic destruction of Native American people. Native Americans have been subjected to major historical losses that include loss of people, loss of land, and loss of family and culture. We were forcefully removed from our homeland, Our people were murdered and raped. Through the boarding school system, our children were stolen from the arms of their mothers and placed in institutions where they were abused emotionally, physically, and sexually. Our children were forced to cut their hair, disciplined for speaking their language, separated from siblings and friends, and isolated from their families and communities, all in an attempt to quote-unquote civilize us. So we take this generation of Indian children who are raised in this environment, and then we return them to their families and their communities, and they have no coping skills, no social skills outside of an abusive state, and no connection to their culture. So we're still seeing the effects of it in our communities today. Indian country has its own challenges and barriers. A lot of it is similar to the mainstream population, but I kind of just want to focus a little bit on what is unique here. So our lack of trust. Our clients have been raised not to trust outsiders, agencies, and government systems. So we, as providers, have to work extremely hard to build trust and rapport with our survivors and in our communities. And we have to build this trust before we can even begin to engage in discussions about domestic violence awareness and education, discussions about healthy relationships and coping skills, and self-sufficiency. So like even in my own organization, we have non-Indian social workers, and we had one that was accused of being a white devil from the grandparent of a child who was involved in a China case. He was also accused of stealing our Indian children for money. And all this kind of stems from the boarding school days and the memories that he still carried with him and that he's passing on to his families. And that's not the only incident that we had here in this program, but that's just the most recent one that came up. Small communities, our survivors are often worried about being seen with working with our program or having someone break confidentiality. They're worried about gossip and rumors. They're worried about being judged, not only by our service providers, but our own community members and family members. Every tribe has different cultural beliefs, and some of those beliefs can keep them from seeking medical and They can keep them from seeking help for medical and mental health issues. Racism, the big one. This sometimes keeps our clients from getting the best services, and it also keeps our clients from seeking out better services. There have been walls built up over the years, little by little. I took a client shopping once, and the store clerks, they walk around and they check on us and make sure we're okay. And the more and more they did that, the more he got paranoid, and then he would look at me and say, "See, they're following me. It's because we're brown. They think we're gonna steal something." And I had to reassure him that no, they weren't. They weren't following us. They were doing their job. That's their job. They go around, hang up clothes, and put stuff back on the rack. And it was really a lot of work to get him to calm down and quit thinking like that, and to just focus on what we needed to get at that trip. So I did my best to reassure him that we're not being followed. But it's like this kind of thinking that he was brought up with, and it's not always unjustified because racism does exist, and we see it every day. But if you continue to have that thinking, it's not going to help break down any barriers. And we do have to show them that there are good people out there. Not everybody is racist. And let them see the positive side. See, jurisdiction issues. This remains a major issue for some reservations. VAWA Section 904 gives tribal authorities special domestic violence jurisdiction over non-Indians accused of intimate partner violence or accused of violating a protective order. But it'll take a long time and a lot of work, really, for tribes to be able to implement that into their communities. So you need to get out there and get familiar with your judges and your court systems, so that way you and your client are both prepared for, what justice will look like in that court system. And then make it a point to work with your local victim witness coordinators, both on the state level and federal level. I don't know if any of your tribes have them in your tribal court. Ours doesn't, but just always make a point to reach out and let people know who you are. Kind kind of makes working with them a little bit easier. Lack of program funding. Programs, they get shut down. They can't afford to provide certain services. They're held back by grant provisions. Funding is important in our ability to provide services to our communities. One way around this is to kind of get familiar with grants and grant writing, learn how to research different funding streams and how to seek donations. So if we want to be successful, we really have to work at it, and we have to work together with other programs. Being Native American is a beautiful thing, and I am so proud to know where I come from and to know my history. And we have to remind our clients that they too come from a great and proud people. We are strong and resilient, and we are still here. This is probably the most important thing that we can teach our clients, their own self-worth and how to love themselves. And this is what we call protective factors. When they are going through rough times, these are what will help get them out of them. So close family ties. Native American families were huge. We grew up with our grandparents and our aunts and our uncles and our cousins, just everybody all right there, usually, sometimes in the same house or sometimes in a couple of houses that are next to each other. We walk all over with our big families and have dinners. And so that's our support system. We have a support system ready and waiting, and we just have to be kind of willing to open ourselves up to it. And we have to remind our clients about that. Our clients might not get along with everyone in their family. They may have burnt some bridges along the way, and they may have isolated themselves or been isolated by their partner for a long time, but our family is still our family, so we kind of want to remind them of that and have them reach out, or maybe pick one or two that they're close to still and let them know that they can trust them and talk to them about different things, just kind of slowly build that relationship back up. For those of our clients who grew up with a large family and that are still connected to them, help them see how blessed they are. And as a provider, maybe you might want to seek a couple relatives out and start building a support system for your client. You're going to have to get permission, of course, from your client, but have them pick somebody out that you can talk to and kind of work with to make sure that the client has somebody there. Traditions and cultural beliefs, these kind of tie in together. If your client has lost touch with their tribal ways, maybe use what knowledge you have to get them a little bit more involved, whether you're part of the tribe or have been working in the community for a long time and kind of know, a little bit more familiar with our ways. Find them some sage, sweetgrass, little things like that, cedar, or whatever healing plants your local tribe uses. You can connect them with another male or female in your community who can take them to ceremonies. You want them to kind of help them feel the power that those ceremonies bring. It brings a lot of peace to our souls, I would say. And this is the beauty of our people. This is what they try to take from us back when they were in boarding school and taking our kids to boarding school and stuff. And they couldn't, and we still have it. So we have to remember that and remind our clients that we still have that, or help them get back in touch with it if they've lost that. Small communities are not always a bad thing. We can let them work in our favor by being familiar with our other program personnel and the directors. We can get familiar with the inner workings of the different departments and have them work with us and for us. Neighborhood watch programs are always a great way to keep our area safe. And Facebook, I have come to realize, has also been a great way to communicate with our tribal members. In my community, we have a page, a group page, I guess is what you would call it, that's just for members of our community, and they pass information, they sell items, they tell where the cops are parked. I mean, just all this kind of little bit of information, but it keeps people in community, it keeps communities close, and it keeps us communicating with each other. We talk about the scores of the last game that our Warriors played and stuff like that. So it's been a really great tool for communication. And as an advocate, I've used it as a way to keep in touch with clients that might not have cell phones, or letting them kind of get to know who I am on my own level. So I don't, post real crazy stuff or anything, but like just to get them familiar with me and to build that trust. And we have to remind our clients of the positive things, especially when they're having a hard time remembering them. The media does a great job of showcasing the negative side of the reservation. And we need to make sure that our clients see the good because they're the ones who are living there. Get them involved with dancing, the crafts, provide outlets for them that are safe and healthy, drag them to the gym, kind of force them over there. I don't know, that's what I do. Take a walk with them, see what kind of classes there are that they can take to improve their skills or learn new ones. The harsh reality is that our clients will probably not leave their partners, so we have to make sure that the family as a whole is safe, and that includes the person who does harm. The people who do harm, they've probably gone through their own trauma too when they're growing up, and that's why they're causing harm on people, and we really have to think about that, the dynamics of that, and how it all kind of goes together. Work with the couple individually, so that way each person is getting services. Checking on the children and work with the school to look for any changes or signs of abuse. You need to build each individual up so that they each on their own are healthy and safe, and that in turn will create a safe and healthy household and a safe and healthy community, the more and more families that we touch and reach. And that's our goal, is to get our world safe, our community, start with us. And the Arapaho elder put it this way: traditional ceremonies, community, and spiritual wellness, it's all tied together. We're a family. We take care of each other. And we really have to keep that in mind when we're working with our Indian families, especially if we're part of the community, and we want our community to be safe. We want our youth to be able to grow up in a safe household and be in a happy and safe relationship. And, when they have babies, and it'll just be that much more better. Providing culturally specific services, building rapport. Be yourself, really. That's really the main important thing I can tell you, is be yourself when you're building that trust. Let them know who you are. Let them see who you are. Be patient. Be patient. Healing takes time, and let them know that you're there and that you're going to be there for however long it takes for them to find healing. Safety planning. Make sure that part of your safety planning includes assessing all aspects of their well-being. So how is their emotional state? Do they need counseling? What does their mental state look like? Are they suffering from depression or having nightmares? Are they sleeping? Physically, how are they? Is there substance abuse? Do they have a sore foot? Something simple like that. Are they suffering from headaches? Are their children sick? What does their home life look like? Do they know the signs of an outburst? Once you chip away at all these little problems, so that way they're not snowballing into a larger problem, it's kind of releasing stress. Taking care of that headache. If they don't want to go to the clinic, maybe find us some Tylenol somewhere, or go to a free clinic, or something just to help relieve a little bit of that stress at home. Because they have so much more to be worried about. They don't need to be worried about something as simple as a sore foot. Or if the sore foot is worse, then you might want to get it checked now before it goes into a bigger problem. Availability and resources. So if classes aren't available in your community, create them. My community provides classes on how to make two-piece dresses. We've had a quilting class. We've had a wood carving classes, kind of more geared towards the men, where they've learned how to make spoons out of, carve spoons out of wood. There's yarn box classes and moccasins, and it's not just my program that does this. It's a lot of other programs that come together, and they're providing these opportunities for our community members. And we're not putting a label on it like survivor classes or these are for our victims. We're just making it available so that way they come, and when we let them know that they're happening and kind of encourage them to come, so that way they're out there, they're creating bonds with other people in the community. They're learning skills, they're building their confidence, and they're learning their traditional crafts, so that way they're carried on to the next generation. And it also serves as a coping mechanism. Everybody always talks about arts and crafts and drawing and meditation and stuff like that. Learning our traditional crafts can be seen as a coping mechanism. And then what we do with these classes is just provide a safe space. Give them a space to come to, get them out of the house. The quilting class that we provided had kind of a mother and daughter theme, or a grandma and granddaughter, aunt and a niece, and we asked them to bring somebody from their family, so that way they can learn how to make a quilt together and use that as bonding time. We have programs that are also bringing in classes like 24/7 dads for the men and date your mate for couples. Our senior services are providing classes about tribal customs and traditions. Look at nearby towns to see what resources are available. Is there a community clothes closet? Is there a food closet? Is there a program that offers rental assistance? Pool all of these resources together and have them available for your clients, so that way they can kind of pick through and see what they need help with. It's just kind of making their life a little bit easier. Community outreach. Educate your community on domestic violence and how they can help. If you're able to, have events to raise awareness. So like this month is October, well, we already know that, but it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so we're going to have a domestic violence awareness run at the end of the month. We usually partner with our youth program to do that. It's going to be a glow run. So we have those throughout the year. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so we usually have a run or something then. So just kind of have those awareness events. Invite speakers to your community to provide and provide a space for them to talk. Have a booth at all the events you can. In our community we have the different powwows or conferences or health fairs, and we always just try to get out there and let them know our face, get them familiar with us. And let them know that we're here, because we're here, and we want them to know that. And make it easier for them to reach out to us. Youth involvement. My program specifically relies heavily on a relationship with the school and youth program to be able to reach our youth. Our advocates have classes during summer youth activities and after school program. We get into the school at least once a month, to go over healthy relationships. Or last year we got in for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we built a tree using their handprints, and talked about different things that you can do with your hands that aren't hitting. And the theme of it was like, our hands don't hit. So we get into the school, we get to know the superintendent and the principals and the counselors and stuff like that. We created a girl circle. Let me see if I can show you. Right there you'll see at the bottom, they're all in a circle. That's our girl circle. Oops. So it's pretty well attended. It's usually, about 12 to 15 girls. It grows every year, And we talk to the girls about different topics like rape culture and how the media portrays relationships and media's influence on people. We also fundraise for an end-of-the-year trip. We get them involved in the community and try to do different community events. And we work on their communication skills. We teach them how to talk to people and what to say and how to promote our program in a positive way. We have our youth coaches using the Coaching Boys into Men curriculum, so that way they're getting these different messages from different angles. They're hearing about how to treat girls and women with respect from the men that they look up to. And all of our coaches are Native American men from this community. So it's really great to have them out there and help them work and having them help us, spread this message. And we have to start with the youth, because they are still able to learn and they're still able to change themselves, and they have the power to change the world. Multidisciplinary teams. Work as a team to provide services to DV clients. A lot that come our way are unemployed, they have substance abuse problems, they have no transportation. Some of them need counseling, they need clothes, they don't have any shoes, they don't have, a winter coat, just all kinds of problems that come with one person. And you need to work with other programs in your community to be able to provide all the services that this person needs. Work with your substance abuse program, your clinic, your workforce, so that they're receiving as much help as they can get. And it also helps relieving some of your stress too as a provider. Being able to put some of your workload on somebody else and have them carry it. And we shouldn't have to do it alone. So we have a unique opportunity to be able to offer culturally specific services to our people, and I think we should take full advantage of that. We should gear our services to our survivors, think about what they need and how we can make our community safe, and really just kind of model our services to that, to our community. So again, just a reminder, October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and if you have any questions, I guess now would be the time.
Great, thank you so much, Dara. That was really informative and helpful, and I just want to point people, in case you missed it in the beginning, if you have questions, the Q&A pod is just to the right of the presentation screen, and the field is at the bottom, so please type in your questions there and we will address those. So we have one from our friend Sean. Sean's question is, how was abuse viewed and handled in many tribes? So could you address that one for us, Dara?
How is what? Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, how was abuse viewed and handled in many tribes?
Historically, I don't think there was really too much abuse. I mean, when I talked to our historian here on our settlement, he says there wasn't too much. It was really looked down upon, and it was usually handled within the community. If that person was abusing his wife, or if she was abusing him, they usually got the tribe together to discuss it. And it was always handled within the family too. So the men of the tribe would, take that man aside and kind of talk to him about it. And if it really came to where he was extremely violent or there was continued problems, he would be banned. He would no longer be a part of the tribe, and they'd kind of banish him, and he'd have to go live off somewhere else. And I don't know how many other tribes did that, but I know the people I've talked to, that's kind of what I'm getting from it.
Great, thank you so much for addressing that question. But while we're waiting for other questions to come in, I will just remind everyone that at the end of this session, we will be redirecting you to a survey. So please stay on, and hopefully that will open on your browser automatically. If you don't see the survey, don't be alarmed. We will send you a link in our follow-up emails. The emails will also include a link to the recording of this, so you can share it with others. You can view it again at a later date. And we'll also include a request form for CEUs if you would like to earn CEUs for attending today. And I just had a question from Georgiana, the copy of the PowerPoint. So we do send out handouts. It's a PDF version of the PowerPoint, so you can, we will be sending that out in the email as well. And yeah, it looks, let's see, a question here from Avis. I too am Arapaho from Wind River. Are you planning to return to the reservation in Wyoming?
I go every once in a while to go see my parents. But other than that, I have no idea yet. I'm still really growing and learning, and I really like what I do right here. But I really do hope someday to return home and kind of work in the same field. I go home. This past year, I went home for ECT celebration, and next year, I always try to hit Sundance, but I think next year I'm going to go a little bit later and just go hang out with my folks.
I have a question for you, Dara. One of the things I'm wondering about is you talked about connecting people with resources and that kind of thing. Do you have any advice on how you handle, as a provider, the boundaries that you need to set as far as you see someone who's in a situation and you want to be able to help them, but you also need to make sure that you don't get too personally involved, or that it's not wearing on you too much so that you can continue to do your job?
I mean, first of all, I think as providers, we have to take care of ourselves. I mean, because we can't provide services unless we're in a healthy state too. So that's a lot of that part, is not letting it wear us down. Myself, I go to the gym a lot. I'm always doing something active every day, and that's kind of how I take care of my stress. And I talk to my coworkers. As far as boundaries, you really do have to set them. When you go through training, or at least when I went through training, they kind of talk to us about, not getting too personal with our stories, making sure the focus is on the clients and the services that they need. Try not to. I mean, you can meet them at a certain level, but always make sure that the focus is on them, so that way they're also not trying to get too close to you and kind of building a dependence. So it's always just kind of trying to keep the focus on them and offering services and making sure that they have a lot of other people working with them too. And that's where I always talk about multidisciplinary teams, so that way there's all these people offering these services, so they're not just attached to one person. And hopefully I answered that one.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. We have one more question, and then I think we'll get ready to close out here. But this question is from Elena, and she asks, through your work, have you seen a significant change in attitudes about domestic violence in youth?
Yes, and that's why it's so important to get there. I always have parents come up to me and say, I was listening to my kids play outside, and when one starts fighting another one, somebody else would say, no, that's bullying and you have to stop, because that's one of our messages that we always talk to them about, is no bullying and making sure you speak up, stand up for your friends and stand up for somebody who's getting hurt. Use your voice to take a stand and make that move. And so that's kind of what we're always in there talking about healthy relationships and, trying to find different adults that they can talk to and they can trust. And we're hoping that the more they see us and the more that they're familiar with us, that they'll start to trust us too. And I think we really see it in our girl circle a lot. I go to volleyball games and I'll run up and they'll say, hey, can I ride home with you? And can you take me to your house? And can I go hang out? Just a bunch of different things that you see. Like you start to notice that the more you work with them, the more they trust you and they see you as somebody that they can go to. And they've seen it in the schools. There's still a lot of families that have their children are getting picked on and that their parents are frustrated, but it's a long process and it takes a lot of time, and it's a community-wide process. And so I always try to emphasize, work with everybody else and make sure people are getting educated, so that way the coaches are telling them not to bully, and the principals telling them not to bully, and the teachers are teaching, sitting them down and talking to them about that. And their parents are telling them about that. So it really takes a whole community effort to stop, violence, and it starts with our youth. I do have one more slide, though, with my information. If anybody wants to get a hold of me for more questions, or if they want copies of PowerPoints, or if they want to, just reach out. There's all my information. Our crisis line is 24/7, and there's only 2 of us here that work in this program, so we trade it off by the month. So this month I have it, and the next month she'll have it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dara. That was a really, really great presentation and just really wonderful, important information. And I hope people are encouraged to help deal with this issue and to look around and be able to find ways to support those who are in an unsafe situation. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and close out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Again. Yeah, thanks again.